This recording is intended to show you the basics of Excel and particularly just setting up financial statements in Excel. I still would strongly encourage you, if you haven't watched the video on Excel basics, to watch that video because it's going to have a lot more than what this will cover and a lot better ideas probably than what I will be giving you. But anyhow, let's go ahead and get started. I want to go over the financial statements for the systems case that you did for Chapter 3. So, we probably would have the first 3 rows would be the heading, so typing that in. Put my caps on, so Bell Wholesale Company, and typing that in, and then the next line, the income statement, and then for month ending August 31st. So that covers a month and it's going to end August 31st. Okay, I'm going to come back. I'll clean that up in a little bit because it's really messy right now. But right now I'm just going to type in the main sales revenue, cost of goods sold. Actually, let me be consistent if I'm not going to. So we'll just capitalize the first word. Okay, and then for operating expenses, after that, we want to start indenting those. So I'm going to go here and increase the indent. So salaries is the first kind of expense we have. Utilities, bad debt expense, depreciation, and rent. So I want all of those indented, so I'm going to highlight the remaining ones and go over here and indent those again. It's kind of hard to tell. Let's widen column A so that it, at least for this part, all of this is included in the column, even though the heading again is kind of messy right now, but I want to center it across the whole income statement, not just this column, so I'm going to wait to do that. So sales revenue, cost of goods sold, and we have all of that, and then we'll have our total operating expenses, and then other income, expense. We have interest revenue and interest expense. Yep. Okay, and we didn't really mean to indent those two, so we're going to take them back, go the other way, so those aren't indented. And then our net income. Okay, so sales revenue, we'll move over to column C, put our $40,000 in there. I see we haven't formatted. Numbers are going to go in column B and C, so I'm going to go to the top and left, click on that, and I'm going to hold down and drag it across column C. So I'm going to highlight all of column B and C. And again, I left-hand clicked on column B, dragged it over through column C. Okay, then I'm going to go over here and format. So I'm going to choose number. I don't want any decimal points, so I want whole numbers. I want a comma in between so it separates the thousands. And I want negative numbers to have parentheses around them. We don't want just the minus sign because it's often difficult to actually read the minus sign. Okay, so we have 40,000. And then cost of goods sold, 22. And then we need a formula. So gross profit, we're going to put in our formula, is going to equal 40,000 minus our 22,000. So again, we have our formula equals C5, this cell, C5 minus C6, so equals 18,000. Then our expenses, I'm just going to type those in. Okay, so enter in all of those. I'm going to sum those. So because when I get over here, I want to take gross profit minus operating expenses to get operating income. So I'm going to add all of these up. A quick way is to go over to auto sum. So equal sum. Excel will take a guess that it thinks it wants us to add this, but we don't. So we're going to go over here. And again, I'm going to left click on that and drag it down. So I want to sum cell B9 through B13. So I'm going to add all of that up and I hit enter and it equals 15,000. Or I could have typed that in myself. I could have just said equals sum and then I'll put parentheses, and then I click and drag all the way down, parentheses enclosed, and hit return. So sum that up. Let's put some lines in here. Whenever we do some math function, we should put a line in. So 40,000 minus 22,000 gives us 18. And here we added all of these up, so let's put a 9 there. So we added all of these up and got this sum. Then we're going to take 18,000 minus 15 to get a number. So we're going to equal 18,000, put that in the wrong spot, equals 18,000 minus our 15,000. So we have C7 minus C14, and hit return, and we'll get our 3,000. Okay, and then interest revenue was a positive 100, and interest expense is a negative 250 because it's expense, it's a negative number. And we're going to add those up. So auto sum, and I just click and drag. 150, and then net income is going to equal 3,000. And then I'm going to add my minus 150. So notice what I did there. For 2850, I took 3,000, and in order to subtract the 150, I added a minus 150 to get that to work. Okay, that was adding those together, so I need a line there. And then net income, the very bottom, we double rule. So bottom double border. So 2 lines there. Now, this is kind of messy when I have 2 items underlined together. So I like to insert a column, and then I'm going to have no border, and then squeeze those together real tight a little bit, just so it has a little break. So when I go to print it, let me go up here to File, Print. You can see, here when we don't see the grid lines, it looks nice and tidy, that those don't look like it's one line like it did before. Okay, the other thing we need to do is center this heading. So we want to center it across columns. So I'm going to merge and center. So again, I just left click, drag it across the 4 columns. I want to merge and center it, and click on that. And then I do it again. Merge and center. Probably would like to have those in bold. So there we have that in bold as well. Okay, and then we can go down to sheet 1. I'm going to right click on it and rename it. That's the income statement. Then I'm going to start a new sheet. I want this to be the statement of retained earnings. So let me rename it. I know this is a little different than what I actually assigned. I'm just trying to cut this recording a little short so it doesn't go real long. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this over so I don't have to redo that. And there we have that. Notice I'm going to have to, well, I'll wait and see if I want to do all of these as well. Retained earnings, just, the balance at the beginning. So beginning balance. And then we add net income. And then less dividends. I see I did not spell income right. And then we would have our ending retained earnings. And I know in the solution I gave you, I wanted more than that. And again, I'm just cutting this short. So let me show you what I just did there. Let me go back and undo. So if I'd like column A to just be wide enough, I can either left click and drag it to however far out I want it to be. Or let me undo that. Or I might just double, left click, but just double it, click, and then automatically widen based on, the widest narrative that I have here. So the widest set of words that I have. So it just automatically did that for me. In this case, we have beginning balance was 0. We want to add in net income. That's going to equal, I'm going to go back to my income statement, and I'm going to say it's going to equal that particular number. So it's going to equal, and go back to the sheet income statement and cell D18. So let's go take a peek at that again. Here's cell D18. So I'm just referencing it there. So if we wanted to change sales to 50,000, boom, net income changes to 12,850, and it changed it over here automatically. So I'll go back and change that back, but just showing you how that would work. Dividends were $1,000. Okay, and then ending retained earnings, I can do my auto sum. It guessed correctly. I want to just net those three numbers, and there we go. Okay, I need to go and format this number. No decimal points, thousands, and my brackets for negative numbers, and there we are. Let's also put in, I want a bottom border, so I want a line under there, and then I always want a double rule at the very bottom. The other thing I didn't do, and I'll do for this, so also I want to highlight the beginning balance is 0. I'm going to hit the control, so the control key, I'm going to hold it down, so I have two cells highlighted. B5 and B8, I have them highlighted, and again I did that by clicking on B5, then I hit the control key, hold it down, and click on this, and now I have no hands on the keyboard. I want to go in and change the formatting to this to currency. So I want a dollar sign this time. So 0 decimal points, dollar sign, negative numbers. And so now those will have a dollar sign in front of them. And let's actually go back. For the income statement, usually you do the first number of each column, and then the column that's your main column, especially, something like net income's a particular number, I want to highlight it as well. So I've clicked on 40,000. I hold down the control key now and click on 7,000 and then 2850. I let go of my control key, and then I'm just going to go over here, currency, and OK. And actually, I could have, let's undo that. I could have just gone here to the dollar sign. Although that gives me decimal points, I'll undo those decimal points here by getting rid of them, and then I'm done. Looks like net income was indented. Let's take it back. There we go. And if I want more indent, that really wasn't much, I could do that. That makes it stand out a little bit better, doesn't it? Yeah, a little bit easier to read. Sales, cost of goods sold, gross profit. We can see the main items right here. So really that's kind of going through for the income statement and statement of retained earnings. And that may be enough for most of you to just kind of get a feel of how to use Excel. I'm going to go ahead and do the balance sheet. Feel free to stay with me if you want. And if not, you can bow out. Let me rename this to the balance sheet. Again, I just right click on that. I actually would like to move it over. I don't know why it got put there, so I'm going to left click and drag it over. I want the balance sheet to be last. I'm going to, just because I'm kind of lazy, I'm going to copy that over, although the heading needs to be a little different because it is the balance sheet. I need to change that. And then this is at a point in time, so we'll just say at August 31st. And I just reminded me, I need to change that heading too, don't I? Statement of retained earnings. Okay, so we've got a good heading there, and we got a dollar sign at the top and bottom, all the way there. I just think I'm learning something myself. I see if I do that, that puts that dollar sign way over, so that's nicer. Actually, I didn't realize that, so lesson learned for all of us. Okay, and then the balance sheet will have a heading, a subheading for assets. And then when we start with those, we'll have, the current assets. And then listing all those cash, accounts receivable. I'm going to stop right now and pause this, and I'm going to write all this in. Okay, so I've entered in all the various current assets and even down to total assets. So I'm going to go up here and double, left click on column A, in between column A and B, and we can see it's going to extend out here. Also, I want to, indent those a couple of times over. So I'm going to need to widen my column again. Okay, and so let's start entering in. Because we've got this allowance account less the allowance for doubtful accounts, and actually I'm going to want to indent that also, so I'm going to keep extending over. Cash, we're going to start putting it in here, 19,000. But when we go to accounts receivable, these two numbers get netted together. So I can see I need to format these columns. So let's format for number and comma and all of that. Okay, we need to draw a line here, and then I'm just going to auto sum, click and drag those together, and that's not going to work because I didn't put that in as a negative. Yeah, I guess I could go ahead and didn't mean to do that. Okay, so minus 2,500. I could do it that way, or if I leave this in as a positive number, then I really would say this equals 25,000 minus that. So either way is fine. And then just enter in your amounts for the rest of them. So I'm going to pause and do that and catch. Okay, I'm back in. I've entered in all the numbers for the current assets. Let's draw a line, and then we will just add those up. Excel guessed wrong, so I'm going to go to the top, click, again, left click, drag it down, and hit enter. So 80,600. Okay, I'm going to skip a space, and so we have our current assets. Now let's start with our other heading for long-term assets, property and equipment, and enter those in. I don't need that indented, so go over here. Okay, so I've entered in equipment. Let's accumulate a depreciation. We ought to indent those a couple spaces over. I put the 20,000 and the 500. We'll draw a line, and then we will add those up. And I'm doing this a little bit different than the solution I gave you. Again, these contra accounts, I put them in as negative here on my spreadsheet. They don't need to be. They could be a positive number. All it would do is change, instead of adding this, then I would take 25,000 minus 2,500. So either way would be fine. Okay, and then finally, we're going to total our assets. And so I'm just adding current and long-term. So click and drag that. So sum C14 all the way through C18, and I have that. I needed to draw a line because I'm adding that, and then double rule for total assets, bottom border. I also want to insert a column and then have no borders. So get rid of that, narrow it down a little bit so that it doesn't look like one line here. I can see I'm netting these to get that, and then I'm taking that plus that to get this total. Okay, now the other thing is that for assets, I'd like to I would like to center that across columns. So I'm just click on merge and center. Let's put that in bold. That might look a little nicer, so that'll stand out. And then I'm going to do the same thing for liabilities and stockholders' equity. Since I capitalized that, I'll capitalize this heading, and I can see I didn't do that for the solution I showed you. It just doesn't matter. This part's just personal preference. And then you can just finish it out. I'm going to pause and type up a bunch of stuff so you don't have to watch me do it. Okay, so now I've typed in all the current liabilities and totaling those. And by the way, we should do spell check. I wanted to continue, and it did catch. I thought I had misspelled that, so I'm going to have it change it. So doing spell check is always a good idea. Anyhow, we want to indent, get home, so indent the actual accounts, and then we want to sum all of those above it. So add those up, and I'm going to put a line in there to show, convey to the reader, the bottom border, that we added those up. Okay, and then we're ready for stockholders' equity. So here I've typed it out, just getting started, and didn't change anything. This is what it would have looked like. So this needs to be indented back, doesn't it? And likewise with this, let's scoot it back a little bit. Okay, I know I've misspelled that. I don't need spell check to catch that. Okay, so I put in common stock. The other thing for retained earnings, we saw for that number back here in our statement of retained earnings. So we need this 1850 to go forward. So that'll be a formula. Okay, and then I'm going to add those common stock and retained earnings up. For total stockholders equity, I could put that down here. Okay, and then we're going to have total liabilities. Well, I can't seem to type today. Okay, and then lastly, we want to add, so if I might just do this, I'm going to take that number plus that number, and that's going to balance, so we're good. So we draw a line to show that we added that, and then we're finished. We want to double roll. Okay, we also want to put in dollar signs, so I'm going to, left click on this first number, and then the first number in each column, and then total assets. We're going, that's kind of the finishing up of that section. And then again, the first number in each column, and then total stockholders and liabilities. And we want a dollar sign there, and we want to get rid of the excess digits. Okay, and there we are. You can always do review, spell check, make sure that it's all okay. And then you're done.